Penn gives Michael Douglas a dangerous birthday gift in The Game.
Andy McDowell wants out of a dead marriage with Bill Pullman in The End of Violence.
And Kevin Spacey, Danny DeVito, and Kim Basinger are ensnared by sex, drugs, and police corruption in L.A. Confidential.
An experiential book of the month. You can drop that at any time with no further obligation.
Michael Douglas gets a birthday gift he'll never forget in the psychological thriller The Game, one of the new fall movies we're reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. The Game is just the sort of gift to get a rich executive with time on his hands and major psychological issues unresolved in his or her life. And that defines Michael Douglas's character in the new movie called The Game, in which his no-account degenerate younger brother Sean Penn gets an intriguing gift for his rich Prince of the City older brother.
Consumer Recreation Services. Well, I do have golf clubs.
Call that number.
Why?
They make your life fun.
Fun.
You know what that is? You've seen other people have. It's an entertainment service.
An escort service?
A profound life experience.
Naturally, Douglas's character can't resist a visit to the company where he gets the pitch from a creepy guy played by James Rebhorn, a good character actor who we're going to see a lot more of because of this film.
It's a game.
A game?
Specifically tailored for each participant. Think of it as a great vacation. Except you don't go to it. It comes to you.
Well, what kind of vacation?
It's different every time.
Humor me with specifics.
We provide whatever's lacking.
Basically, The Game is a series of intense psychological tests that prey on a participant's weaknesses in an effort to teach him about himself, teach him to confront his demons. Douglas doesn't realize this at first, as he and a waitress he's met, played by Deborah Carr Unger, find themselves in corporate offices that are a front for testing his mental and physical strength.
We'll wait for security to come, and we'll just explain.
Oh, they'll love that. Explain for both of us.
Wait.
We don't want to draw any tension, just out for a stroll.
Run.
Later, is it paranoia or reality or The Game, as Douglas finds himself in a taxi that he suddenly fears is controlled by the creators of The Game.
Oh, no, stop the car! Stop the car! Thank you. Open the door. Lock the door. Open the...
The setup of The Game and the setup of Michael Douglas's character, a rich kid who saw his wealthy young father commit suicide, is really the best part. Those two parts are the best parts of this picture. Douglas handles power and money better than any actor today. Think of his movies, Wall Street, The American President, and now The Game. But this story doesn't really go anywhere surprising. I didn't think the payoff of the movie was that creative, and the big concept is quite easy to figure out. And just as important, I'm not really sure what Michael Douglas learns at the end of The Game. It's a well-performed, handsomely designed motion picture, but a lot less meaningful, I think, than the filmmakers may have intended. A close call, but I really only like the first hour of The Game.
I couldn't disagree with you more. This is a really splendidly entertaining movie by David Fincher, the man who made Seven, and he does find out something at the end. He is brought down to reality. This egocentric, distant, cold person is reduced to a level of being, I think, more of a human being. But apart from that, the fact that we know it's a game is given away in the title. Of course we know it's a game. And of course we know that everything that's happening isn't real. And of course that's the whole idea, because there are layers under layers under layers in a wonderfully photographed and acted and written story.
I said wonderfully photographed and acted. But the many, many layers that you're talking about, Roger, are not that many.
Yes, there are. There are a lot of times when you don't know what's happening and you're surprised.
Not me.
When he goes in
Maybe
a taxi
you.
cab off the edge of the pier and is about to drown, looked like it was real as far as I was concerned. I think you really have gotten
Roger,
a very entertaining movie here, and you've praised his setup, The Rich Kid Who Sees His Father Dies. Those are home movies in the opening titles.
Did you hear me
for
say
you, the movie
those
is
things?
over after 4 minutes.
No, you didn't, because can you remember what I said? Do you remember somebody looking like me saying just a few seconds ago, I liked the first hour? That's true, Roger. I liked half of it.
Okay, coming up later in the show, Kevin Spacey, Kim Basinger, and a tale of vile corruption in L.A. Confidential. And coming up next, Bill Pullman and Andy McDowell feel paranoia in Los Angeles in The End of Violence.
If there's anything specific you want, you let me know now.
Be the killer.
See, that's where I took the liberty of saying only in Hollywood.
Uh-huh. So the killer's a deranged hooker?
No, he was a regular guy.
Uh-huh. Just like to kill on the weekends.
That's a moment of intrigue from our next movie, The End of Violence, directed by Wim Wenders, a filmmaker who has worked both in Germany and America, and his films Paris, Texas, and Wings of Desire are masterpieces. But The End of Violence is a confused and aimless disappointment, a film in which a lot of ideas mill around trying to find the plot. As the film opens, a powerful film producer, played by Bill Pullman, is so busy on the telephone he hardly notices when his wife, played by Andy McDowell, says she's leaving him.
I have a yearning for life. For life.
Christ, not again. Paige, look, I'm coming upstairs. I'm coming in a minute. I've been waiting for this call.
Not long after, Pullman is carjacked by two thieves who are not impressed by his celebrity.
I want to give you $1 million in points. Points? What the hell's points mean?
That encounter has a deadly outcome. Lauren Dean plays a cop investigating the crime who quizzes one of the missing man's stunt women, played by Tracy Lind. It's supposed to add poignance that the movie set is inspired by Edward Hopper's Night Hawks, but the set upstages the dialogue here.
You're beautiful. Movies, murder. I was going to segue into it from there.
Crafty.
Meanwhile, in a subplot that is hilariously implausible, a surveillance expert, played by Gabriel Byrne, is working on a system to watch all of Los Angeles with hidden video cameras.
If we could get this thing fully operational soon, it'll be an awesome tool. Cut down on crime response time by 200%. Accuracy, eyewitness evidence. Could mean the end of violence as we know it.
That would be good.
Like his 1991 film Until the End of the World, this new film by Wenders seems to combine several story ideas into a screenplay that has not really been finished. Fashionable ideas about celebrity and alienation rattle around with a B-movie plot about kidnapping, and he throws in the usual cynical backstage Hollywood insider stuff, but the movie is very slow, and there are times when the actors don't seem quite sure what their scenes are about or what they're supposed to feel. The End of Violence is a major disappointment from a major filmmaker.
And I think it's a major achievement from a major filmmaker. Boy,
Really?
we got two pictures that were at cross, but this one, we talk about layers, this film has a lot of layers in it. I thought it was a masterful job of talking about Hollywood by a foreign filmmaker, coming here and I think really laying out an industry that talks about violence and doesn't even know what the power of the images it's presenting. I thought that the domestic relationship was extremely powerful. We just talked about and both praised Godard's Contempt, with a similar kind of relationship of someone in the film industry and his wife, where the loathing is palpable and flies off the screen. And I thought this was very brave and powerful and strong and well acted. This was one of my favorite films of the year, and I don't know...
What about Gabriel Byrne up there with his television cameras?
You know,
Do you
Roger,
believe you
I
can
think-
have hidden TV cameras all over LA to watch everyone?
Well, as you often say to me, it ain't a documentary. I think that Wenders is looking at this country and looking at and laying out a warning of invasion, of observation, of information in that way. And I felt that that was symptomatic of the government overlooking
Well, I'm
things.
sure that that describes the theme of the movie, but I don't think it makes it a good movie or certainly an entertaining one.
No, let me tell you this. It's the treatment, and man, I think I really, for you, because I know you like him as a filmmaker,
I do.
I would ask you to see this picture again.
I've seen it twice already, Gene. I saw it at the Cannes Film Festival, and I've seen it again.
Didn't it win a prize there?
As a matter of fact, it was a major flop, yes.
Well, good. What do they know?
Coming up next, the 1950s murder cover-up that reveals some strange bedfellows in L.A. Confidential.
Big V, what are you doing here? Hey, you know me, I'm keeping the streets safe, boys.
Supposed to stay away from a man when his blood is up.
His blood's always up.
But perhaps you should stay away from him altogether.
A young Los Angeles police officer in the 1950s has his idealism severely tested in L.A. Confidential, a great-looking new movie that manages to breathe some life in the overworked cops and corruption genre of filmmaking. Co-writer-director Curtis Hanson has come up with a very complicated but cleanly told story based on the novel by the best-selling author James Ellroy. The portrait of L.A. as a sin and exploitation center begins as we watch a veteran sergeant, Kevin Spacey, conspire with a sleazy rascal, a tabloid publisher, Danny DeVito, to arrange and photograph a drug bust of a young actor.
Freeze! Police! Come on. Come on. Let's go.
I got my family coming out
Be a
tomorrow.
nice Christmas gift, won't it?
Hi, Tammy.
All right.
Hi, Matt.
Right over here. Just turn.
Hold it. Got it. The movie premiere pot bus.
Take care.
Enter a young, obsessed cop played by a bright new face, Russell Crowe, who investigates a mysterious businessman played by David Strathairn.
I needed a Rita Hayworth to fill out my little studio.
A little studio.
Oh, there's Gardner, Russell, Monroe, Turner. Then Bracken is my Veronica Lake. I use girls that look like movie stars. Sometimes I employ a plastic surgeon. When the work had been done, that's when you saw us.
The same cop is drawn to a beautiful hooker played by Kim Basinger. L.A. Confidential has a gorgeous palette thanks to cinematographer Dante Spinati, whose credits include The Last of the Mohegans, Heat, and Nell. This is a world-class talent.
You're different, Officer White. You're the first man in 5 years who didn't tell me I look like Veronica Lake inside of a minute.
You look better than Veronica Lake.
And there's another young, steely, ambitious cop who is central to this story, and he, played by Guy Pearce, also has his eye on Basinger.
I see Bud because I want to. I see Bud because he can't hide the good inside of him. I see Bud because he doesn't know how to disguise who he is. I see Bud for all the ways he's different from you.
Don't underestimate me, Miss Bracken.
It was hard to predict the storyline of L.A. Confidential, and I really enjoyed that about this picture. And again, the photography. The 50s have never looked better in the movies. L.A. Confidential is a very confident movie. It's not Chinatown, it's Hollywood, and it's very good.
It is very, very good. It reminded me in a way of Once Upon a Time in America in the sense that it had such a lot of different threads of plot that all came around and at the end all turned out to be connected.
It's very
in that
well
way,
written.
it's also like Chinatown. But good performances from one end to the other. This Guy Pearce is really good. He's a newcomer who has a real presence on the screen.
He can stare directly into the screen, and it's dramatic.
Yes,
and that's
yes.
the nature of stardom.
Kim Basinger is very good here because she's a wounded woman who's trying to do...
Good casting to pick her.
What she's trying to do, what she thinks is right, and it turns out to be what's wrong. But then also the whole sleazy era of Confidential magazine and the beginning of gossip and the beginning of paparazzi, if you will, it's all there.
And to find the drama in that, it looks right. I mean, it just, again, the look. I'm seeing scenes we've seen countless times before, but it looks good.
And more absorbed at the end. James Cromwell, you didn't mention, the police captain who's in charge of everyone, and what he has to do with the plot. When we come back, Andy Garcia risks his life for his art in The Disappearance of Garcia Lorca. Lorca, based on the life of the Spanish poet and playwright Federico Garcia Lorca. In the movie, he's played by Andy Garcia, and on the opening night of his new play in 1936, he's a national hero and is idolized by a young autograph seeker.
You know my work well? What's your name?
Ricardo Fernandez.
But Garcia Lorca has little time to live as the hatred and plots of the Spanish Civil War draw a net around him. The Disappearance of Garcia Lorca is a speculative version of his death, which is still controversial 60 years later, and it tells the story partly through the eyes of that little boy who soon moves to Puerto Rico with his family, but years later returns to seek out the truth about Garcia Lorca. As an adult, he's played by Isai Morales.
Why are you going on with this?
Because now I've got them scared. Looks like I must be pretty close to putting it all together, don't you think?
The movie recreates the mounting tension as Garcia Lorca, protected to some degree by his fame, tries to prevent the violent tactics of fascist troops loyal to Generalissimo Franco. Miguel Ferrer plays Centeno, leader of the thugs.
Let her go.
Take her inside. Lock the door.
But a more insidious enemy is played by Edward James Olmos, a power behind the scenes.
I wrote the charges. I signed the warrant. He said, why not? That man is a danger to all of us.
And yet, years later in Madrid, the same man is publishing a collection of Garcia Lorca's verse.
You're printing books. Who else understands them as well as I do?
The Disappearance of Garcia Lorca unfolds like a detective story in both the past and the present, showing how art and artists are a danger to authoritarian regimes and how their words are perceived as more of a threat sometimes than enemies with guns. The movie's intriguing in the way it shows how political fashions can turn, how a man can be too dangerous to live, even though his words can later be embraced by his enemies in a sentimental way.
I think it's a very good film. I was very impressed by Andy Garcia. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't, first of all, he hasn't had a part this deep. And, you know, playing a writer, it's not easy playing a writer on film because you can't show your craft in a movie way.
They do quote a lot of Garcia Lorca's poetry, though, fairly effectively.
And I like, one of the tests I use, if a movie is about an artist, does the movie make you want to read or go to see their paintings or listen to their music immediately thereafter? And I had that feeling. You want to see...
I felt exactly. I took down my volume of Garcia Lorca. I opened it to some of the same poems that were in the movie, and I read them again, and I was very moved by it.
It's a wonderful film in this way, and I recommend it. It's a good job all around. When we come back, our video segment is a tribute to a gifted Canadian filmmaker who died too young. Jean-Claude Lauzon's Leolo is next.
PLAZA, offering the finest in luxury service in Southern California style, adjacent to Beverly Hills on LA's fashionable west side. The Century Plaza Hotel and Tower, a Westin hotel.
A small plane crash in August in northern Canada claimed the life of the Montreal filmmaker Jean-Claude Lauzon, who was only 42 years old and had made a series of strange, visionary films, part comedy, part hallucination. I met him once at the Cannes Film Festival, and we had a long argument about his weird 1987 film Night Zoo, which I didn't like nearly as much as he did. Then in 1992, he made Leolo, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. It tells the story of a young man growing up in Montreal in an insanely dysfunctional family. Driven to deny the father he hates, the hero, named Leo, decides his mother was actually impregnated by a tomato, and that he is therefore Italian and should be called Leolo. Leolo also hates his vile old grandfather and devises a bizarre Rube Goldberg plan to murder him. That scene is halfway between horrifying and hilarious, and there are countless perfect little moments in the movie as when a homeless man corrects Leolo's tilting kitchen table by sliding a book under the leg, which is how the only book in the house gets there.
Oh, vous inquiétez pas, Mme Lozo. Il est comme neuf, il est dans le plastique.
Leolo is an absolutely brilliant movie, and if you see it, you will mourn, as we do, the tragic death of its creator, Jean-Claude Lauzon. It's our video pick of the week, and now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed this week. We split on David Fincher's thriller, The Game. I thought it contains one of Michael Douglas's best performances. It's a really entertaining thriller, but Gene only enjoyed the first hour. A split decision on Wim Wenders' The End of Violence. I thought it was unfocused, boring, and disappointing. Gene was thrilled by its vision of a city under surveillance and a family and industry in ruins. 2 big thumbs up for the confident, sprawling, very entertaining L.A. Confidential, which weaves a labyrinth of police corruption and has great work by Kevin Spacey and Kim Basinger and star-making performances by Russell Crowe and Guy Pearce. It opens next week. And finally, 2 thumbs up for The Disappearance of Garcia Lorea, with Andy Garcia as the murdered Spanish poet.
So some excellent films this week.
Good stuff. The Game, I think, is a good film.
And we agreed on Garcia Lorea. Remember, you can check our votes and hear our reviews of recent movies at our website. The address is Siskel-Ebert.com. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including 1,000 Acres, starring Michelle Pfeiffer, Jessica Lange, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. And also, Noah Wiley from TVZR has a homecoming that his family will never forget in The Myth of Fingerprints. That's next week. Until then, the balcony is closed.